Does it stay in your tummy? Does it still taste yummy? Or is it turned into money? Well, it goes down.
Welcome to my LO about the digestive system. So today we're going to be going over just the basics of the digestive system, mostly at a middle school to maybe high school level. This is my mini LO, and it's going to be just the basics. All right, so first let's start at the beginning. The digestive system starts at the mouth. So you start digesting. Oh, something's wrong. All right, let me try this one again. Oh, okay, here you go. So you start digesting at the mouth here. Ah, crap. So I did it again. Damn it. All right, let's try one more time. Oh, here we go. All right. This is the human digestive system, and here is the mouth. So basically, I'm just going to go over one part at a time and kind of give just the basics of what everything does. So first, actually, before we get into that, I did want to explain the layers of the digestive tract. So, caveat, the digestive tract, these layers will be slightly different as we move along the digestive tract, but I'm not going to get into that. I figured that we will eventually have an LO on each of the sections of the digestive tract and the accessory organs, and we can explain the histology specifics for each of them. But in general, they're going to have these four main layers of mucosa, which is made up of three different layers. So the first layer of the mucosa is the epithelium, which are these dotted pieces here, are the square guys that roll around. And then we have the pink part, the lamina propria, and the muscularis mucosa, which is the smooth muscle responsible for local movement. So what's called segmentation, which is the breakup of pieces and moving within the section that we're talking about. Then we have another section called submucosa, which is basically just connective tissue of nerves and blood vessels. And we can see that there is some nerve stuff going on here, the submucosal plexus and the mesenteric plexus, which I'm not going to get into, but those are some of the nervous systems that will control the gastrointestinal tract. Then the third layer is the muscularis propria, and that can be broken down into the inner circular muscle and the outer longitudinal muscle. So here in this diagram, we can see the specifics names here, circular muscle and longitudinal muscle. And both of those are going to be responsible for the action of peristalsis, which is the movement of food or chyme or feces, whatever stage it's at, through the digestive tract, through kind of a pumping action. And I think that would be a great LO on its own, is the action of peristalsis. Then the outer layer is called the serosa or adventitia. It's continuous with the mesentery and also has major nerves and vessels. And from what I was reading, it sounds like the adventitia / serosa changes names as it goes through the tract. So that's something that I hope that we'll get to explore, hopefully this unit. And then I included a small histological slide here just to give you guys a flavor of the variety in which the digestive tract produces, although each of these contains the four sublayers that we were talking about. So if we go step by step, the first step is obviously what you put in your mouth. So this is the oral cavity. And the oral cavity is important because that's where you chew your food, and it secretes this lubricating fluid with enzymes, such as salivary amylase, and that's saliva, and so that's going to break down carbohydrates mostly. And then your teeth and tongue are mostly for just chewing and mechanical processing, just preparing stuff for the esophagus. And then also I wanted to point out the salivary glands, and we have the parotid, sublingual, and submandibular. I know that we learned these in anatomy, but it's good to remember that there are 3 salivary glands. The epiglottis is an important unit, and the epiglottis is right here, and I think we remember that part, but it separates the trachea from the esophagus and blocks food from entering the trachea. And then the pharyngeal muscles in the pharynx propel food. So once it's been chewed up and has entered the esophageal region, it's called a bolus, and it moves down the esophagus into the stomach during swallowing. Once it's in the stomach is not a section of absorption. Instead, is a section of mixing and storage. So it stores a lot of the food and mixes it with pepsin, which is or pepsinogen, which is converted to pepsin by the large amount of acid in the stomach. And I think that is something that we can talk about in another LO. But basically, the point of the stomach is to hold stuff, start to break it down, and turn it into chyme, which is this very acidic liquid mixture that gets passed into the intestines for further processing. So an important part of the whole system is the duodenum, and if you remember, that has the major duodenal papilla, which is where the gallbladder and pancreas dump their stuff. So this is kind of like the major intersection, and this is kind of like where 580 and I-80 and 880 all kind of mix, in Oakland, where you're getting the chyme from the stomach mixes with the basic juices and enzymes from the pancreas to reestablish a basic pH, because you're going to release all these enzymes, so you don't want them to be denatured by the acid from the stomach, so you have to reestablish this basic pH. And then you're going to get bile from the gallbladder. So the duodenum is basically the intersection. The part 2 of the small intestine is the jejunum. And so I know that the separate parts here are not labeled on this figure, but the jejunum is what I've always thought the entire small intestine was responsible for, but this is actually where the majority of absorption takes place. So I imagine what we're going to be talking about in the other LOs is that there's something wrong with what's going on in the jejunum. And then if we take one step back and look at the liver and gallbladder, the liver has over 200 different functions, but its primary function in digestion is the production of bile, which gets stored in the gallbladder, and then when you eat a really fatty meal, the gallbladder releases the bile into the duodenum. And then the last part of the small intestine, part 3 of the small intestine, is basically, it's like the sloppy seconds of the jejunum. It absorbs a little bit of vitamin B12, some bile salts, and anything that the jejunum didn't pick up. And then we move into the large intestine, which is also kind of, not as exciting as the small intestine. It absorbs the majority of the water from the feces, so it compacts our feces. And then one of its primary purposes is just to hold it until, we have time to find a place to use the bathroom. And it absorbs a few vitamins from bacteria, such as vitamin K. And so that also might be important for the patient that we're looking at. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this presentation.
Esophagus, say goodbye, off it goes into the stomach, splash. Around the duodenum, boy, you should have seen them turning into mushy mash. Up and down intestines, having just the best time, making us strong, no question. Into the bloodstream, lose what you don't need, that's what we call digestion.